Good morning and welcome to the Walk-Off. I'm Scott Belford, normally joined by the best co-host in the biz, Adam Mack. We got up today to do Mailbag, and power is out in Edmonton where Adam resides, despite me trying to convince him to go to a Starbucks and record the podcast there. He said absolutely not. So here we are going solo. It is a Monday morning Mailbag on a Tuesday afternoon. And I have all sorts of questions and comments to get to here. You can always reach out to us on Twitter at Walk Off Podcast. You can hit us up on Instagram, The Walk Off Podcast. I comb through the Discord, which is a part of our Patreon. So you get the Patreon bump there, $4 a month. You get extra content like MLB Mondays. You get instant access to all of our interviews and our shows. And on top of that, of course, if you want to get into the mailbag, it is an automatic yes. So we do have our Discord questions as well as our Patreon itself. So on that note, before we dig into it, I'm very excited about where I'm headed today. So, as some of you know, the Walk Off Podcast has been picked up by Crier Media, which means that we are going to be accredited with the Buffalo Bisons. That's where I'm actually headed right now to go cover a couple Bisons games in Buffalo and have full access to the field, have full access to the clubhouse. I'm very, very excited. I've never done anything like this. I haven't been a reporter or anything like that. So a little nervous, but it should be good. It's kind of funny. I was given the list of names of the players that we'll have access to, and Will Robertson and Spencer Horwitz was top of the list. And I was like, oh, well, we just had those guys on the podcast. So it'll be kind of nice to see them. That's perfect. Calm the nerves a little bit, right? Some friendly faces. So that should be good. Watch for the content there. I'll put out a couple articles too on just what's going on in Buffalo, dig into the weeds there. And I know that there's been a lot of talk about Spencer Horwitz because of the season he's having. And so I will try and pick his brain on how he's feeling just being on the precipice of a call up here, but also needing to stay focused on what he's doing in Buffalo. So looking forward to that. Again, keep an eye out. Crier Media also just yesterday was approved for access to the Blue Jays. So I'll be covering some Jay stuff down on the field and stuff like that a little later in the summer. Pretty excited about that as well, obviously. One last thing before I get into the questions and your comments here, which again, all you got to do to get in is just keep trying. All right. I know that some of you have sent messages 2 or 3 times and just have missed getting in and have messaged me kind of upset. All I can say is like we do get a pile of them. So keep attempting and I'll do my best. Finally, Baseball Town. Super excited about this show. It's going to be at the Comedy Bar in Toronto. And this is what I'm doing. I'm running a monthly baseball talk show oriented around the Blue Jays and having a panel of guests down. So this month's panel, it's going to be May 30th. So that's a Thursday, an off day for the Jays, by the way, 7 o'clock till about 8:30. The panel is going to have the one and only from Jays Talk and the pregame show on Sportsnet 590 The Fan, Shoa Lee. Excited to have him down. It looks like Scotty Mitchell, MLB reporter for TSN, is going to be there. And then very excited to have the gentleman from Blue Jays Today, one of the top Blue Jays podcasts out there, joining us, both Adam and Nick coming down. So that'll be our panel. And then on top of that, we're doing a little roast battle between teams. This month's teams are going to be the Toronto Blue Jays versus the New York Yankees, a couple of Toronto's top comedians representing each organization and ripping into each other. So it should be a lot of fun. Tickets are $22. You can get that at the Comedy Bar, or I'm going to leave the link for that in the comments section. It'd be really cool to get everyone off of Twitter and off of whatever social media where they kind of reside and talk Blue Jays and get us all together under one roof in person. I know, what a wild idea in 2024. Okay, on that note, let's get into it here. We'll start with a message from Discord, and this was after the Alek Manoah start that we were all so impressed with a couple of days ago. Original Bubba says, Manoah deserves the patience he's received from the organization. He's still one of our best young pitchers. And you do kind of forget that Alek Manoah is quite young because he came up at 23 and dominated in 2021. The kid is only 26 years old. A lot of starting pitchers don't really hit their stride until at least that. So he makes a good point that the patience was well worth it. I am not saying Manoah is all the way back, but I think all Jays fans feel a little bit of positivity towards the progress he has made after seeing his last two starts. Baba continues here. He says, it seems like his time in the minors have helped him find his stride again. His career is still incredibly impressive so far. These numbers kind of surprised me because I would have guessed that Manoah's numbers had fallen off a cliff, but he had put up such good numbers before he kind of before he well, before 2023, and we saw what happened there. So these are his numbers. Over 400 innings pitched at 26 years old. He has a 3.31 ERA, a 1.163 whip, and that's with over 400 strikeouts. So great stuff there. It is very encouraging to see how Alek Manoah has done. Drop in the comments, where are you at, the grounds crew, on Alek Manoah? Are you starting to feel a little bit better about where this kid is at? Because I know that I was very trepidatious to get back on board, especially after his one good start. And then seeing him repeat it and probably have on Sunday the start of his career. I mean, one hit, 7 innings. He looked so good, so composed. Yeah, I'm not saying I'm back on board, but man, oh man, am I ever feeling better about Alek Manoah than I was, let's say, even 3 weeks ago. So let us know in the comments section where you're at on Alek Manoah. Going to Twitter. Trish DM'd us. Hey guys, hoping to make it into Mailbag this week. I'm still trying despite failing numerous times. This is true. Trish has messaged me. I think this is her 4th time. So apologies, Trish, that it took this long to get you on. See, determination. The old Davis Schneider way of living. Trish gets her way through sheer determination. Her question is, Jay Jackson was DFA'd by the Twins. He was so good in Toronto. Any chance the front office goes out and brings him home to the Blue Jays? And this is a great question. Jay had a really rough go of it in Minnesota over his first 6 weeks, obviously, because he got his first major league contract from the Twins at 37 years old, $1.5 million. And for them to just straight up give up on him, obviously he has struggled. Now, one thing I will say is that the Blue Jays bullpen has been hit and miss so far this season. They have dealt with some injuries as well. I mean, I'm going down to Buffalo right now. One of the guys that I'm hoping to talk to, Chad Green, who is rehabbing there tonight. Bowden Francis, same thing. So, yes, there are some spots in this bullpen that might be available. And Trish is correct. Jay Jackson performed incredibly well in a Blue Jays uniform, and maybe he can capture some of that magic from 2023 if he were to return home, as some people have called it here. Do I think it's going to happen? I'd actually give it a 50-50 shot. You can never have too much depth when it comes to bullpen pieces, and even though Jay has never been one of those velo dominant guys, he knows how to pitch. He's been around the league. He's played in Japan. He's a wily veteran. And sometimes those guys just kind of find it, even after struggling. His whip, not so bad. It's around a 1.3 whip. Where he has been hit hard is he's given up a lot of home runs, a lot of long balls, and that's why he's got a 7 ERA, which, I mean, we all know that bullpen pitchers judging on ERA isn't always the best thing because small sample sizes can blow them up, but he has struggled mightily. I know I have some Twins fans as friends who have said good riddance. So do we want Jay Jackson? Grounds crew, let me know. We will cycle back to this in a week. We'll see what happens on the waiver wire and where everyone's at. Someone else might pick Jay up. But if not, it would be great to see him given another opportunity with the Blue Jays as we try and get this bullpen kind of on solid ground. I know that with Romano and with Swanson struggling so hard out of the gate, and Romano's kind of started to look more like himself, definitely. Even Eric Swanson has started to come around here, but not being able to start the season with the team, going through injury to start the season, just not where we wanted to see them. So if the Blue Jays are going to, I know we're at 2 wins in a row here, but if the Blue Jays are actually going to convince this front office to not sell everything off, they need to continue to put up big numbers throughout the month of May. And there's no way that they're going to go on a winning streak without the bullpen being nails. Thank you, Trish, and good job on trying so hard to get on here. Okay, this next one comes from YouTube. This one made me laugh. James T on YouTube goes, Scott, exclamation mark. Dude, I finally placed your energy and way you talk. You remind me of Tom Green. I actually get that quite a bit. I get it after shows lots of times while I do stand up. So, I mean, Tom Green, Canadian icon, tough to take that as anything but a compliment. So there you go. James T on YouTube placed it. I look and sound like Tom Green, I guess. All right. Now we're going to get into a couple of longer ones here. These are from Patreon. Those of you who have watched the walk-off for any amount of time knows that food comparisons is something we go to that well a lot. Oh, Adam Mack loves himself a good food comparison with a baseball thing. And Metal Manic brings it into full glory here. He says, the Blue Jays are like a bowl of candy in an old folks' home. It looks great. And if you want to enjoy it, it looks great and you want to enjoy it. But when it comes time to take a piece, they stick together. Once in a while, you're able to wriggle a piece free, but it breaks, and it's never as good as what it looks like in the bowl. You soon realize that all of the candy is the same and not worth the effort of enjoying. If you add candy to the bowl, it makes it seem like everything is back to normal. But it doesn't take long before they too stick together or are taken by someone else. When you offer the remaining candy to others, they aren't interested. Eventually, there has to be a new bowl of candy in hopes that it doesn't get stuck like the others. One where everyone wants a piece and are willing to give you a piece of theirs for a piece of yours. Basically, the Toronto Blue Jays are a bowl of stuck-together candy that needs to be replaced. You can add candy to the bowl, but it is still a bad bowl of candy. Kind of one apple spoils the bunch type of metaphor here. And it made me laugh. I get where Metal Manic is coming from. I know some of us have been given optimism after the last 2 games, and this team has looked better over the last couple weeks. Is it enough? I really don't know. I want to be the optimist. You all know we're known for our toxic positivity. I still feel like this is a tall order, a very tall order. And I'm going to continue to cheer this team on and hope for the best. But there is a lot of writing on the wall that looks like the Blue Jays could be seller this offseason for the first time in a long time. I mean, they had hit that low water mark of 6 games below 500, which is the worst mark that they've had since 2019. And we all know how bad 2019 was as a year for the Blue Jays. We were in full rebuild mode. And I think Kevin Biggio was the lone call-up of the 3 from the Bloodlines. It was dark times. And to see a year like 2024 where the team was expected to contend be such a failure, it definitely hurts more to hit that low water mark. Jay's now 4 games under 500 after winning 2 in a row. And it kind of shocked me. This is the first time they've strung 2 wins together in like 3 weeks. No wonders this team feels like it's a sinking ship, to steal a quote from Shea Hillenbrand. Moving on, Caribou Heart TV says, is there any chance the front office is tanking for draft picks? This is a conspiracy I haven't heard yet. I realize I'm just angry and looking to point fingers, but going back to the offseason, management doesn't seem all that intent on improving the team. Our farm system is trash. The farm system is a weird farm system because there are some very talented players currently at AAA, but when it comes to the pedigree of prospects, they're not those high-end prospects that everyone is after. They're guys like Spencer Horowitz, who is 26 years old, knocking on the door and probably needs a spot, has done everything that they can in AAA, but there isn't really a spot for them in the big leagues. It's a different kind of farm system, and it would be easier to take if everyone in the big leagues right now was performing to where at least this front office thought they'd perform to, right? Our farm system is trash. I personally think our entire scouting department needs to be fired. We've got a few guys that'll do well, but no real studs. Ricky can't stay healthy, so we can't count on him until he proves otherwise. Bo is gone after next year. I don't see him coming back. Hopefully they'll trade him for prospects. I believe Vlad will be back, but if they haven't re-signed him yet, is it plausible that they've already decided they don't want him back either? So trade him for prospects, question mark. If we don't re-sign Jansen, that leaves us with Kirk behind the plate. Yikes, the future could be bleak. That said, with a few well-placed draft picks, a couple of savvy trades, and some good offseason signings, we could be looking at a completely different machine. Just for shits and giggles, if Juan Soto makes it to free agency, is there any chance we go all in on him? So some interesting stuff there from Caribou Heart. You can tell he is frustrated very similarly to the rest of us, right? And maybe he painted a bleaker picture than it actually is. But the truth is this front office is going to have to shit or get off the pot because there are big time decisions to be made. And if they are made incorrectly, it could be very dark times over the next few years. If it does get to a point, and we talked about this on Long Toss quite a bit, if it does get to the point where that is the decision and this team decides to go in a retool, rebuild mode, they absolutely need to get what they can from their expiring assets. So he mentioned Bo Bichette is gone. This is speculation. I think a lot of people feel that way. He's tougher to read. He looks a little checked out, although he has looked fiery over the last week. He does seem to be coming out of the slump. And I know baseball people and just sports people in general always bring up, yeah, of course, guys who are slumping look miserable. I mean, it sucks to lose and it sucks to slump. And Bo Bichette's been in the biggest slump of his career. So maybe judging too much on his facial expressions is a bad way to go about this. However, you would think that if Bo Bichette was going to re-sign, he would have already done so. Vladdy, I do also feel a little bit differently, although I don't think Vladdy's going to be cheap, although maybe you can get him on a bridge type contract where you lock him up for another 2 or 3 years so he hits free agency at 28 or 29, and maybe he can recoup some of that $300 million over 10-year type value that he had buzz going for him in 2021. So if you are looking at the farm system, yeah, that is definitely this front office's biggest weakness, right? And we all have talked about this. In 2015, when Mark Shapiro took over and offered Alex Anthopoulos the GM job, and he turned it down because he didn't like that he wouldn't have full autonomy, which is, again, maybe it is a problem within this organization. The groupthink, the collaboration. We've also talked this, right? And one of the things Shapiro said when he took over, he kind of scolded Anthopoulos, right? He said, you emptied the farm for 2015 and 2016, but now we're looking and we're in the same boat with Shapiro. Those waves of talent that he promised us never really came to fruition. Not that there weren't some very good prospects that were either moved for guys like Jose Barrios or who have come up like Bo Bichette, a draft pick from the Shapiro and Atkins era, and been incredible. Player development has sucked for this team, though. We haven't seen those waves of talent. I mean, who is really contributing to this team that is homegrown right now? Davis Schneider? And again, I brought this up on Long Toss that I don't even feel like Davis Schneider really counts. I feel like he would have developed like he has anywhere, which isn't really fair to take the low points from this front office and then not give them credit. So maybe I should give him credit for Davis Schneider. But you know what? When a 28th round draft pick works out, maybe that's player development. Would love to hear your thoughts on that, folks. Grounds crew, drop your comments. I do like the positivity at the end. The future could be bleak. That said, with a few well-placed draft picks, a couple savvy trades, things could turn around. And that's really the case. So if they are going into a rebuild that needs to be done right, I've already stated this so many times. I don't think Atkins is the guy to be at the helm for a second rebuild. You get one. Okay? You get one. You don't get to rebuild 2 or 3 times. That's absolute insanity. So we'll see what happens. I don't particularly wish to see Atkins making decisions at the trade deadline for what direction this team goes in. I don't know if Shapiro has the intestinal fortitude, we'll call it, to fire him mid-season, do the old Jerry DiPoto where Jerry was put in as the GM of the Mariners midway through 2016 so that he could kind of guide the direction at the trade deadline. I think that is something that should be happen. I know we talked about maybe a James Click internship where he comes in and is the interim GM, kind of starts things, and they can reevaluate in the offseason. Let me know what you folks think on that. Finally, I know this has been a little bit of a shorter mailbag. It's always tougher solo, but thank you so much, everybody, for all your questions, your comments. Feel free to drop your comments below, and we will do our best to get into it next mailbag or even on Friday's show, kind of revisit some of this stuff. So finally, we got a bunch of comments on the Julia Cruz interview. Always love having Julia on the show. She's so savvy. She's so baseball smart. And I kind of mentioned this in the interview. It's nice to get a fresh perspective because sometimes Adam and I can start tossing things back and forth, and pretty soon we're just focused on the same things. So it was nice to get a fresh perspective. Mish wrote, I love seeing successful women in male-dominated fields, doing the same job, just not being window dressing. I loved what Julia had to say about breaking into the journo pool. I would add, don't think just because you're fresh out of school that you know everything. Respect the elders in the room. They have forgotten more than you'll ever learn in school, including all the nuances and unwritten rules. If you're lucky like I was, you'll find some mentors who will take you under their wing and steer you in the right direction. And that was one of the questions from listeners that Julia was asked, was just how you kind of get into journalism. And her answer was, yeah, go to journalism school. And once you come out of it, really go for coffee, make those networks, pick people's brains who have more experience than you. It was a really good interview. Anyways, you can check that out on the Walk Off channel or wherever you get the podcast. And on that, I am off to Buffalo. So I will leave you folks right now, and feel free to check out Crier Media's website. That's where we're going to be posting our articles and stuff like that on this Buffalo trip. So I've got 2 articles I'm writing. Hopefully get to talk with Chad Green. That would be very cool. See how he's doing on his rehab. He is on the verge of rejoining this Blue Jays bullpen, which is really good news for the bullpen. All right, everybody. Have a excellent afternoon, and we will see you on Friday. Take care.